Washington and Oregon are leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten, and this was pretty much expected to happen. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And for Washington and Oregon, we obviously knew that they weren't going to stay around in the Pac-12. There were some rumors that came out earlier this morning that said that they were considering staying in the Pac-12, but we pretty much knew that was a bunch of nonsense. With the apparent new media rights deal that the Pac-12 is trying to negotiate with Apple TV, it isn't really guaranteeing any money that's going to be more than what Washington or Oregon will make in the Big Ten or any other conference like the Big 12 or the SEC. And this is a big get for the Big Ten Conference. You have two really good football programs and also two basketball programs that I think also have pretty high potential as well. Washington is in a pretty big media market. Oregon, I don't really know if they have a large media market or not, but I do know that they have a very large and passionate fan base when it comes to college football, and they have a lot of money up there. They pour a lot of resources into their football facilities, and they have a lot of incredible uniform combinations. So watching Oregon and Washington playing in the Big Ten is going to be really fun and entertaining. We get to see them going up against Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and you already know Oregon has Ohio State's number. And Washington has kind of already done a little bit of damage to the Big Ten in the past, given how they blew out Michigan State not too long ago. And I think that these are two programs that have the potential to be powerhouses in the conference like the Big Ten. Michigan, Ohio State, they are already established, but Oregon and Washington, they're already on the come up, and they recruit very well at a very high level, and they got two young coaches who are having their programs going in the right direction very fast. Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning, two second-year head coaches, have their programs in prime spots to make a giant leap into potentially being a consistent national championship contender. Dan Lanning was fantastic year one at Oregon. He comes from Georgia. He served as Kirby Smart's defensive coordinator for a while. He's a really good recruiter. Kalen DeBoer was the former head coach at Fresno State prior to last year. He has been known for being able to be really good on the offense side of football, and that was evident with how he was able to rehabilitate Michael Penix last season. So it's going to be really exciting thinking about the potential matchups that we're going to see with Washington and Oregon inside of the Big Ten. And they already follow their former Pac-12 brethren and UCLA and USC to the conference. The Pac-12, the West Coast, is now starting to invade the Big Ten, and the Big Ten continues their conference expansion westward. They get into some more West Coast media markets. Like I said, you already know Washington has a pretty big media market. We don't know how big Oregon's is, but these are two teams that should generate a lot of revenue. They have pretty massive fan bases, and their fans are really supportive of their programs, regardless if they're having a great year or a down year. And for the Pac-12, this is just really unfortunate for them. And we're going to dive into them a little bit, but I also want to talk about the potential of what Washington and Oregon can be in the Big Ten. Are they going to be able to be good enough to compete with Ohio State and, some of the other juggernauts in this conference, such as Michigan? I believe so. USC is going to be right up there as well. These schools just recruit way too well for them not to be a factor in the Big Ten. If you think that the Big Ten is just going to beat up on these West Coast teams because they're from the West Coast, you got another thing coming. Let's not act like Oregon didn't just give Ohio State the beats not too long ago when many people thought that Oregon had no chance in that game. And Oregon just completely dominated Ohio State up front. So Ohio State has struggled with Oregon, and these are both two programs that have appeared in the college football playoff over the past decade. Oregon was in the inaugural college football playoffs, and Washington went a couple of years after that when they lost to Alabama in the semifinals. These are two really good programs, two highly respected programs in the Big Ten that have the ability to be able to compete with the better teams in this conference, and they can also be able to win the Big Ten on any given year. The Big Ten just got incredibly more talented. They have added more depth. And around this time next year, or whenever Washington and Oregon become official members of the Big Ten, you probably are going to be able to make a legitimate argument that maybe the Big Ten will be a better conference than the SEC because they probably are going to have better overall depth in terms of the quality of teams that they're going to have in their conference versus the SEC. And even if they're not better, the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC from a college football standpoint in terms of talent is going to be incredibly smaller than what it is right now. The Big Ten, they had their eyes on Washington and Oregon. There were some reports about them wanting to add them to the conference dating back to last year, but there were a little bit of some issues with, not wanting to add too many teams at one time and not really having a good idea of how many teams they want to add to the conference and if they wanted to further expand after adding UCLA and USC. But this was pretty much a fire sale for the Big Ten. You remember when Kmart was going out of business and you saw those big clearance signs, hey, everything is 60, 70% off, everything has to go. This is what this was for the Big Ten. It was a clearance sale. They got an opportunity to get two really good programs. And the fact that the Pac-12 can't find a way to get a proper media rights deal gave Oregon and Washington all the ammunition that they needed to leave the Pac-12 conference. The Big Ten, this conference just got better. They got more teams in terms of depth and quality that are going to be able to compete for the Big Ten title, and not just being optimistic. This is something that can actually happen. Anytime you recruit at the level that Oregon and Washington do consistently, you're going to be up there with the Ohio States and the Michigans of the world. If you're somebody who's a fan of the Big Ten and you don't really know all that much about Oregon and Washington and where they are as programs, just know that these programs, when they really get rolling, there are going to be some juggernauts when it comes to recruiting, and they recruit better than Michigan already. Michigan recruits at a pretty high level, but they don't recruit at the kind of level that Oregon and Washington are capable of when they're rolling on all cylinders. Big Ten just got better. Washington and Oregon joined the conference. Let me know how you guys feel about this.